This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
Believe it or not, there's still a ton of hope left for the Cleveland Browns this season, especially if they win this weekend against the Las Vegas Raiders and get to 2-2. They would have a 2-0 record versus AFC opponents, and that would move them up the pecking order when it comes to this log jam in the AFC of what will likely be 2-2 teams at the end of week 4. So the Browns are nowhere close to being out of it. I mean, teams like Cincinnati right now are 0-3, Baltimore sitting at 1-2, the San Francisco 49ers are sitting at 1-2. Like, there's a lot of teams that are starting out similarly as slow as the Cleveland Browns, and last week was just full of upsets as well. And I want us to remember where we were last year after week 4. It's easy to forget because time goes on and things happen at such a high rate now that it's easy to forget something that happened just a year ago, or something a year ago feels like it happened like 10 years ago. But after week 4, we were way lower than this. DTR had to play. We had no idea what the health status of Deshaun Watson was. Browns had that tough stretch that we did not think the Browns would come out above water with, and then they ended up winning 5 of their next 6 and rolled that ball downhill to really get into contention for the rest of the year. So I'm not losing hope on this season yet. It's far, far too early, and this team is not in unmarked territory. The Browns have been here before. And what I want to talk about are changes the Browns can make to this offense that can lead to better results for this team. Now, look, I'm not going to talk about benching the quarterback here. The reason I'm not going to talk about benching the quarterback as one of these solutions is not because I think it's off the table for the Cleveland Browns. I do think it is something that the Browns should be considering at this point is, hey, does Deshaun Watson give you the best chance to win? But while that's where I'm at personally, I think it's important to remember that benching Deshaun Watson is not going to be the magic bullet for this offense. You need to make some other changes because whoever plays quarterback is still going to have to deal with some of the issues that the Cleveland Browns have. And right now, the way that they're playing, the way that they're going about the offense, I don't think anybody just steps in there, especially anybody on this roster, steps in here and fixes the problem, right? Like, in order for the Browns to fix this problem without having to change anything offensively, they would need to trade for Patrick Mahomes and Trent Williams. Like, that's what would fix the problem for the Cleveland Browns without changing anything. So you still need to make changes to the offense because what has been going on the first 3 weeks of the season has clearly, obviously not worked for a number of reasons. The number one thing I want to go to, or the first thing I want to go to, is more Foreman. Look, the Browns' 2 worst offensive performances line up exactly with D'Onta Foreman not getting any attempts, and that's more of a reflection of the Browns abandoning the run game. This team is not good enough throwing the ball to where they can afford to abandon the run game, even if the run game is not successful. I think that they should just simply run the ball a little bit more and run it more with Foreman. I don't mind the amount of carries that Jerome Ford has been getting. He's been getting around 10 to 15 carries. That's about the amount of carries I think Jerome Ford should get. But Foreman has gone from 0 carries to 2 carries to 15 carries. It's far too much variance in what D'Onta Foreman has been doing when it comes to these carries. And I think you should have a more consistent output for him when it comes to rushing attempts. And I think this week was another example of them just getting lost and forgetting to run the ball at the clip that they usually run it. The second thing, and look, this is one of the most important things, less empty. Now, when I say less empty, some people hear that as less shotgun. That's not what I'm saying. I think the Browns should stay in shotgun. I don't think the solution for an offensive line is struggling is putting your quarterback under center and having him do a bunch of 5 and 7 step drops to get the ball out, when also that quarterback has shown you that he's not good at doing those 5 and 7 step drops or maneuvering in the pocket in a way that's useful in that kind of an offense. So I don't think you should go under center. I don't think that's how you solve the problem. Stay in shotgun. Just run less empty. It's real simple, right? Keep a tight end on the line of scrimmage. Have that tight end chip release. I know that David Njoku is not available right now, but if David Njoku's not out there, there's really no reason to want to have your tight end out wide. Jordan Atkins simply just isn't good enough to make that sacrifice for when it comes to protection. If you got to play the blocking tight end, play the blocking tight end, but you got to do something here. Stay in shotgun, because I do think that gives you the best chance to get the ball off. But be in heavier shotgun sets, right? 11, 12 personnel, have a blocking tight end in on the line of scrimmage, keep a running back in, have some guys check in. So if there's a blitz, it looks like it's coming, they stay in. If it's not, they run a route. Just simple stuff that they could do, and I think they will do. You can run a lot of bunch out of these sets. You can run a lot of double still in these sets, and I think you should run some bunch and double, because I think the strength of this team is going to be their ability to run the ball out of gun, and you're going to run the ball out of gun better in doubles and bunch sets out of shotgun. Maybe some pistol. I haven't seen Kevin really use a ton of pistol. He's no Greg Roman out of that set, but still would love to be out of empty into some more traditional shotgun formations. Put the tight end behind the guard tackle, like really get creative with how you put your tight end on the line of scrimmage. But the Browns really do need to start putting a tight end around the line of scrimmage almost every time they get into shotgun. I don't think they can afford to, they sometimes run like a 4 wide, where they have 4 on one side wide and then 1 on another side empty. I'm gonna be really crude here about why you can't be an empty so it's not confused, right? Because I think, when you talk about other problems on the offense, we tend to make it about other things, but let's be honest here. The reason you can't live in empty is because Deshaun Watson not good enough to play an empty. He has not shown that he could do that in 2024. And look, there was a time where he could eat out of empty, and he was one of those guys who could do it. And there are a lot of guys in the NFL, I would say like 10, 12 guys in the league who can really eat out of empty 40, 50% of the time. Deshaun Watson, not one of those guys. So you got to stay out of empty. Look, Deshaun Watson has regressed versus the blitz this year. He had a 72 PFF grade versus the blitz in 2023. This year, he's dropped to a 51 PFF grade versus the blitz. So he's dropped considerably and regressed considerably in his ability to identify blitzes and get the ball out. The only time Deshaun Watson has been useful for this team this year has been when you've kept him clean. And this is how you can keep him clean, right? If you keep him clean, he still can be useful to you. I don't know if he'll be great, but he could be useful to you. And I don't think putting him under center is going to keep him clean better than just keeping a tight end in, making sure your running back always has a chip in, and keeping them in on protection to kind of dissuade people from blitzing and all of that. The Browns have to stop getting behind the sticks in drives and really get going on these drives. The one big regression from this offense 3 weeks into the season versus last year, right, where I thought Deshaun Watson was playing well 3 weeks into 2023. I don't think he's playing well 3 weeks into 2024. Why do I think that? What's been different about it? Look at the score percentage. The Browns have an abysmal score percentage right now of 24.3. That's 30th in the NFL. For those who don't know, your score percentage is the amount of times you get the ball on a possession and the percentage of times on a possession that you score points. Touchdown, field goal. The Browns only score points 24% of the time. This is also why this video is not going to be about the defense, because while the defense has had its struggles and they're not playing as good as they did last year, I'm going to be honest, you could have won every game this year with that level of defensive performance that you got if you just got something from the offense that was remotely acceptable throughout the year. You got acceptable offense versus Jacksonville, you won that game. I think if you get acceptable offense versus the Cowboys, you win that game. And I think if you get acceptable offense versus the New York Giants, you win that game. But right now, the Browns have an abysmal score percentage of 24.3, which is good for 30th. Again, why I call this a regression? In 2023, the Browns had a score percentage of 37%, which would rank 14th in the NFL. So the Browns have dropped 15 spots in score percentage. They've dropped over 10 percentage points in score percentage. It's a giant regression from last year in that. Another area where the regression is even more stark and concerning is first downs. One of the reasons I thought that Deshaun Watson was playing well in 2023 was, hey, the team was getting a lot of first downs. No matter how much you thought they were struggling on offense, they were getting a consistent output of first downs. So in 2023, in the first 3 weeks, the Browns had 64 first downs, which would be good for 6 in today's NFL. So 64 first downs in 2023. In 2024, 48, which is good for 28th ranked in first downs for the NFL. So the Browns went from one of the best teams on offense getting first downs in the NFL at a high clip, at a top 6 clip, to being in the bottom 5 clip for first downs. That's regression. It's a massive regression on offense. So what's been the big problem for the Cleveland Browns? What's been causing this regression? I think it's the pressure percentage, right? The pressure percentage this year is at an astounding 37% for the Cleveland Browns offense on Deshaun Watson. Last year in the first 3 games, it was sitting at about 21%. And 21's not great, but it's obviously much more preferable to 37%, which then leads to another question, right? If the pressures are creating the regression that we're seeing on offense, what's creating the pressures? And where I think the main issue is with all of these pressures and the increase in pressures the Browns are dealing with right now, I think that lies with the Browns being in so much 5-0 protection. Again, I kind of talked about this earlier this week, but 5-0 protection is when you only have the 5 offensive linemen out as blockers. And I think it's really hurting the Cleveland Browns. Now, again, you stay in 5-0 because you want to get the most out of your quarterback and let him throw downfield and be explosive and all of that. But right now, Deshaun's not getting any of that done. So you got to get out of empty. Like, he just can't do it. It's been 3 weeks. It doesn't make sense for him to be in empty anymore. It's actively making him much, 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 much worse than he was last year. The thought was you put him in empty, you let him play like a superstar, he's going to look like a superstar. That was the hope coming into this season. Well, that's not what's happening. You're letting him play like a superstar, and he looks horrible. So now it's time to just reel it back, right? Playing some more protected, heavy protection sets and stay in shotgun, but while staying in shotgun, but still take him out of it because the pressure percentage is way up. He's not dealing with the pressure percentage. And look, it's not like you're getting blitzed more in 2024 than you did last year. Last year, the Browns got blitzed 44 times through 3 weeks. This year, the Browns have only been blitzed 40 times, so it's actually gone down this year. So you're dealing with less blitzes, but you're getting more pressure. And yes, some of this has to do with the individual performances on the offensive line not being great. But I'm going to be honest, the offensive line through three weeks last year wasn't great either. You were dealing with a bunch of backups and switch out situations and guys swapping in and out. It's not that dissimilar to what's going on with the Cleveland Browns now. So I think this has a lot more to do about the protections that they sit in, more so than the players that they're running the protection with. Because when I watch this Browns offensive line, I don't really see them get beat man to man as much as I just see them get overwhelmed or beat by a sim pressure or something like that. So that's why I'm not really pointing the finger at one individual offensive lineman, because I think that's misguided. I think the problem is bigger than the individual offensive lineman. I think the issue is what these offensive linemen are being asked to do to facilitate an offense for a quarterback that just can't deliver on the promise of running an offense like that. All right, the last thing I want to talk about, and there's a couple of things connected to this, are wide receiver drops. They got to go down. The Browns have to catch the ball. Through 3 weeks this year, the Browns have 14 drops. I mean, that's by far the most in the NFL. I don't even got to check to know that's the most in the NFL. Last year, in Deshaun Watson's entire run, as the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns in 2023. He only dealt with 12 drops. And that's not a little amount, but 12 drops in 6 weeks, 14-3. That's not good. That's really, really bad. Now, there are some things causing these drops that I think need to be discussed, but these drops are still happening. And it's not because Watson is throwing the ball off target. His bad throw percentage is down from what it was last year. Now, again, I think the reason it's down might be something, or at least a window into why the drop percentage is up, but it is down. Last year, his bad throw percentage was at 18.6. This year, it's at 17.9. So, yes, the wide receivers need to catch the ball better. I know that's very simple math here, but maybe you're sitting there and you're asking me, hey, Quincy, going from 7 drops in the first 3 weeks last year to 14 seems like a stark increase. If it's not that Deshaun Watson is throwing the ball off target, then what's the reason for these drops? Are these guys just not able to catch the ball anymore? I mean, it's largely the same wide receiving room, and the one guy that you added, Jerry Jeudy, has been a plus, not a negative. So like, what's going on? Why are there so many drops? Well, it goes back to that bad throw percentage, because Deshaun Watson's bad throw percentage is down. It did drop from 18.6 to 17.9. But the reason it's down is part of the reason I think the drops are up, and that is the intended air yards per pass attempt. So how many yards do the Browns attempt to get every time they throw the football on average? Last year, it was pretty high. They were trying to get 9.5 yards per pass attempt. This year, it's dropped all the way to 7.8. That means that the Browns are throwing the ball short far more often. Another thing that demonstrates this point, if you go on Pro Football Focus and you look at the amount of times Deshaun Watson throws the ball within 10 yards or behind the line of scrimmage, this year he's sitting at 65% of the time. He's throwing super short. That is up from last year. He was at 60%, right? It's gone up 5 whole percentage points. The year before, in 2022, when he just got off suspension, it was at 57%. And what's interesting about that 57% number, that's the number that Joe Flacco was at with those short throws, and that's the number that Jacoby Brissett was at. So that, to me, feels like the basis of Kevin Stefanski's offense. You'll want to sit at 57%. 10-yard to behind the line of scrimmage throws, like that's where you want to sit at in this offense. It seems like a pretty consistent number throughout Kevin Stefanski's career with multiple different quarterbacks that he wants to sit at that. But it's gone up, and now we're at 65%, almost 8 percentage points up from the baseline that Kevin likes to sit at. It's concerning. Just to put how high that 65% number is for Deshaun Watson when it comes to throws less than 10 yards or behind the line of scrimmage. DTR last year was not known for throwing the ball downfield. He was kind of known for throwing the ball really short, and that was a real problem for the Cleveland Browns. Well, DTR threw the ball 64%. 10 yards or behind the line of scrimmage. Deshaun Watson sitting at 65. And what happens when you throw short 65% of the time? The defense gets used to it. So they don't worry about getting beat deep. They just sit on top of everything and decide that they're going to crash on it. And when they crash on these throws, you're going to create a lot of drops. A lot of these catches are going to be contested. So that's what's driving up the drop number. It's not a coincidence that the drop number has gone up, and so has the short throw number gone up. Like, those two things are related. You throw short this much, you're going to get a lot more drops. Remember what happened with DTR. When it became obvious to defenses that DTR cannot throw the ball deep in his rookie year, they just sat on everything, and then they crashed on everything, and there was a lot of drops when DTR was out there. This is not that different than what was going on at that point. That's why the drops are up. So what the Browns really need to do is be able to get the ball downfield. Now, with DTR, I understood why the Browns could not get the ball downfield, because DTR just at that point was not there yet. He could not throw the ball downfield reliably. Deshaun Watson, though, is on this team because he should be able to throw the ball downfield reliably. Now, if they are concerned that he cannot throw the ball downfield reliably, then I think we really do need to consider putting in a different quarterback, because sitting in this situation where you're going to be throwing short 65% of the time, it's just going to lead to more blitzes. It's just going to lead to more pressure. It's going to make it easier to defend, and it's not going to be good offense, right? It's going to be easier to stop the run. It's going to be easier to blitz you. It's going to be easier to get you pressure, and everything that's going wrong right now is going to keep magnifying itself as time goes on. You got to be able to push this ball downfield. And that's the biggest adjustment that they have to make. Like, Deshaun's got to start being successful throwing this ball downfield, or the Browns got to find somebody who could play quarterback that can do that, because that inability right now at the Cleveland Browns is really hurting this offense. And that's why they're not as successful as they were last year. First downs are down in the first 3 weeks from 64 to 48. Scoring percentage is down from 37 to 24. You can't live like this offensively. If you have a 37% score percentage against any of the teams that you played in the first 3 weeks, you have a 3-0 record. But 24% score percentage, you're not beating many people with that, no matter how good your defense is. I mean, you're basically saying that you're going to score, 15, maybe 17 points a game when your score percentage is that low. It's not a way to win. You're not going to win football games like that. They got to get the ball going downfield. They got to get Deontay Foreman going. They got to be in less empty and have tight ends in more on the line of scrimmage. So that's what I think the Browns need to do to get better. They got to get out of empty, got to run the ball more with Deontay Foreman, and they got to get this ball downfield, because it's creating a lot of problems for this team. If they start doing those three things well, they will win a lot of games, and they will be a better football team no matter who's out there at quarterback. But you got to do those three things well.